Hey guys, welcome to Chapter 5 of the Pre-Algebra program. And in this chapter, again, I feel like there should be a lot of review and not a lot of instruction. So I'm actually going to do a video over two sections today. And later in the week, I'm going to be doing another video over section 3 and 4, just because I think that the information will be review and you won't need a lot of instruction. So instead of making, two tiny videos, I thought I would just throw them into one. So in this chapter, we are going to be working with rational numbers. And in the event that you're not familiar with what that means, a rational number simply means a fraction that can be written in terms of integers. Oh, hold on, let me just pause that for a second. Okay, so by definition, a rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction with integer digits. So it means it can be written like this, where both these top and bottom numbers are integers. Now, who remembers what an integer is? So let's define that. An integer are positive and negative whole numbers and 0. Okay, so that's like the formal definition of an integer, but we're going to basically be playing around with decimals and fractions and maneuvering them back and forth, making sure that you feel very confident being able to move back and forth between them. So for example, if they give us 4/25 and they want us to write that as a decimal, well, a fraction is simple division, right? And so all we have to do is divide this in order to be able to figure out what the decimal equivalent is. And it's always the bottom into the top. Okay, so bottom into the top. Now, 25 doesn't go into 4. So remember that we have to add a decimal and maybe a couple of places in order to be able to do this long division wise. Okay, so now I ask myself, how many times does 25 go into 40? Well, it goes once, and then I multiply down. Oops. And I go ahead and borrow and subtract. And then how many times does 25 go into 150? Goes in 6 times. Okay, so 4/25 converts to 0.16 as a decimal. All right, hopefully again, you guys have been doing that for a while, so that should be super easy. I just want to remind you, if you get a number that repeats, that we're going to use a bar to show the repeating number. So let's just do one more example like this. So again, it's bottom into top. We're going to add a couple of decimal places here. So now 6 goes into 50. Let's start with 8 times. We're going to subtract, and then it goes 3 times. And if I add, now see what's going to happen here. I'm going to be repeating. Okay, so we'd put the bar over that 3. So my answer would be 0.83 with a bar over that 3 repeating. Okay, and then one other type, what if we had a mixed number? Whoops, sorry about that. What if we had a mixed number? Remember, we need to convert this to an improper fraction. So it's bottom times the top. I'm sorry. It's bottom times the whole number plus the top. So 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 2 is 5, all over the denominator. And then don't lose that negative. That's really important. So make sure you keep him if he's around. Okay, so that would be one type, maneuvering from fractions to decimals. What if you had to compare fractions? What if we had something like 7/8 and you needed to know if that was bigger than or less than 5/6? Well, again, we would convert each of these to decimals. And since we already know how to do that, I'm going to go ahead and just give you what the decimal equivalent is here. And we just did this guy. Okay, and so now in order to compare which one is bigger, you're going to go place value by place value. So you'd start here, and in the tens place, they both have an 8. Okay, so they're tied. Move to the next place value. He has a 7 and he has a 3. Well, 7 is greater than 3, which means this decimal or this fraction has to be greater than. Okay, what if you have something like 0.04 and you need to compare that to 5/9? Well, this left guy is already in decimal form, so that's super easy. But we would need to convert this guy on the right. So if we do that, you're going to get 0.55 repeating here. And now we can compare place value to place value. So this guy in the tens place has a 0, and this guy in the tens place has a 5, which means the 5/9 has to be greater. Okay, that's essentially 5/1, just helping you maneuver between decimals and fractions. So I'm going to move ahead to 5/2 now. And 5/2 is just more work with these rational numbers. So say you had something like 0.6 and you needed to convert that to a fraction. So we'd have to look at the place value that it resides in. And if you remember, that first place value is tenths. And so in order to convert this, we would write the number that we have over its last place value. In this case, it's the tenths place or tens place. And then we would just reduce it like we had practiced before. So we'd have to simplify this fraction by dividing top and bottom by 2, which would give me 3/5. So that would be the number we're looking for here. Okay, what if we had something like a whole number and a decimal? Okay, we'll just ignore the whole number for a minute and let's look at the decimal portion. You look at the very last place value that it holds, and remember the first place value is the tenths and the second one is the hundredths. So we're going to put all of that 24 over 100, and we're going to have to reduce this guy. And remember, if they're both even, and at the very least we can reduce it by 2. So that might be an easy way to start if we divide both by 2. But they're both even, which means I can go again. And now I think we've got down to as simple as we can make it, because nothing goes into 6 and 25. Okay, so now we're going to write this as a mixed number. So remember, we had a whole number here. It was -3. And now we have our fraction equivalent, which is 6. I don't know why I'm having problems with my stylus today. 25ths. So this would be the equivalent of -3.24 as a mixed number. Okay, so again, hopefully this is pretty easy going back and forth here. Just one other thing I wanted to mention, the difference between natural numbers, integers, which we just defined, and then rationals also. So you're going to have to place numbers in these categories. And like I said at the beginning of this lesson, we identified integers as positive and negative, whole numbers, and 0. Rational numbers, we said we could write as an integer over an integer. And so that simply leaves the natural numbers, and the natural numbers are naturally the ones that you can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way up. So the natural numbers start with 1, and they're the whole numbers going up. So that's going to help you place them in the appropriate categories. Okay, that's it for these 2 lessons. Hopefully it's pretty easy. So you guys finish up your notes, read through the sections, and begin your assignment.